All right, let's move on to this story now, where US President Donald Trump's recent executive order, which will now see foreign aid to various countries, including South Africa, being halted for at least 90 days. Of course, there's a few challenges to this happening in the United States, but for now it still stands. It's already having a negative impact on certain sectors, particularly healthcare. Now, the sudden halt of funding has already resulted in the suspension of a number of critical health support services across the Western Cape, particularly related to the dispensation of vital HIV and AIDS treatments. Latashia Naidoo brings us more than on this story, particularly out of the Western Cape. Latashia, one needs to understand that, yes, we may only have 17% of South Africa's entire HIV/AIDS mandate being paid out basically by PEPFAR. But it's still a significant amount when you have 27 districts that are ultimately affected by this, and you run the biggest HIV/AIDS project ultimately in the world, according to the minister.
Yes, good morning, Arabella. Speaking with regard to PEPFAR, that of course being the US President's emergency plan for AIDS relief. That program, which has been operating in South Africa since 2004, has resulted in the disbursement of over $8 billion in funding towards HIV/AIDS programs and the dispensation of vital life-saving treatment. Now, 17% is still a significant amount if you take into account that over 1,250 NGOs and clinics receive funding from PEPFAR as part of that US aid program. And this halting of services has had already detrimental effects on communities who rely on this vital treatment. Now, I'm standing outside the Ivan Tom Center for Health in Greenpoint. This center provides healthcare services for M2M. That's, of course, being men who have sexual intercourse with other men. And this is, as you can see on the board above me, it's a program that's funded by USAID and PEPFAR. And there's actually a sign outside the building at the moment stating the temporary closure of this facility as a result of that directive by US President Donald Trump that he signed into order on the 20th of January this year. 4 days later, his US Secretary of State Marco Rubio signing a stop work order halting the disbursement of all funds for US aid to countries around the world. And South Africa falls within that portfolio. The US aid that we receive is not just for healthcare. There's funding as well for LGBTQI support services, for climate issues, etc. But healthcare forms the largest portfolio. And we know that in South Africa, which has the highest HIV rate in the world, 7.8 million South Africans living with HIV, 5.8 million who rely on ARVs. And while the South African government does make provisions for a large percentage of the rollouts, PEPFAR is a lifeline for a large percentage of South Africans living with HIV as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how, over the course of these 90 days, if that directive still holds strong and whether clinics like Ivan Tom's, where I'm standing outside at this moment, will continue to be affected, and also the communities and those people seeking the life-saving treatments will also be affected by this executive order, Arabella.
Yeah, this executive order is one that, as I said a little bit earlier, is certainly being challenged in itself, but one that is having repercussions globally. And this is going to be one of those aspects that we're going to continue to focus on as well and kind of get a sense of how exactly it deters or changes things. Will South Africa have the ability and capability of perhaps funding the shortfall, shall we say then, with regards to this? Or does it have to look elsewhere perhaps then in order to get this done?